In my last video, I shared how I took a trip to the Philippines with my wife and kids to meet my remote team for the first time. And one of the best parts, I was able to deduct nearly the entire trip as a business expense. In this video, I'll break down exactly how I did that and explain the basics of tax deductions. First, let's clarify what a deduction is. A deduction is simply a reduction of your taxable income. So if my business income is $50,000 and I have business expenses of $20,000 that I can deduct on my tax return, it reduces the taxable portion of my income by $20,000 for a taxable net profit of $30,000. So you might be inclined to say, hey, the more deductions I have, the better, right? Well, you could spend another $30K on business supplies, education, software, advertising, or whatever to get your taxable income down to zero, but you also won't have any extra money in your pocket either because you spent it all chasing deductions. In other words, don't maximize your deductions. Even though that's one of the most popular tax planning phrases you'll hear, I prefer the phrase optimizing your tax deductions. Run your business intelligently and deduct everything you possibly can for things you need to run your business or that you would have purchased anyway. But don't just buy stuff unnecessarily because you want a deduction. Deductions should be the icing on the cake, not the cake itself. Now, on to the trip. I was able to deduct travel expenses for my entire family. Here's how it worked. It wasn't an insignificant expense, and it's something I felt was valuable for my business as a whole. And the fact that it was fully deductible was a big bonus. I got to bring family on this amazing trip, have this life experience, show my kids how I'm doing business, and even though it had all these amazing personal aspects, I still get a big tax benefit for it. That's the beauty of having a business. It gives you additional flexibility with how you can optimize your taxes. Anyway, let's start with one you may be wondering about most. How can I justify deducting the travel expenses for my wife and kids? So my wife is a W-2 employee of my business. She's on payroll and she's constantly discussing my business operations with me. I'm constantly bouncing ideas and scenarios off of her, and I have clear documentation that shows her as an employee and what she does. So as far as justifying deducting her trip expenses, that one's kind of a slam dunk, not an aggressive position at all. Now for my two oldest kids who came along. This is where I have to ensure I have a legitimate business purpose. Here's where they fit in my case, and you can do this as well. Your kids can be part of your company board of advisors. If your children are formally listed as members of your board of advisors, their participation on the trip could be considered part of their advisory duties. This includes offering feedback and strategic direction for the business, discussing operations, advising on future growth. So they also assisted with content creation. They helped take photos and videos, which I'm using in this video, for internal purposes, for future business marketing, contributing to the content that promotes the business. This labor directly supports the business's marketing efforts, which can be a valid deduction. And they also help to facilitate group dynamics. My daughter has an Etsy store where she sells bracelets, and she made a Philippine flag colored bracelet for everyone on my team. They helped improve communication morale just by being there and being part of the group, which contributed to the success of the trip. And then if you treat the trip as part of training or business development, as an opportunity for your kids, which helps them learn more about the business, gives them experience in how the company operates, that's an educational aspect that can be a reason to justify their trip as a business expense. A key takeaway is to deduct family travel expense, you have to ensure that they serve a genuine business purpose and document everything clearly. Have documentation to support your claim if ever questioned by the IRS. So I have no problem deducting their travel, lodging, and meals right along with mine and my team's. If the IRS ever questioned it, I'd have the documentation to support my position. So let's talk about travel expenses overall. A common question I get is, can I deduct my travel out of state if I do business and personal things? So let's do an example. Say you go to a reseller conference in Las Vegas, but you extend the trip a few days for personal vacation purposes. Can you still deduct the flights to and from Vegas? Yes, if the primary purpose of the trip was for business purposes, then you can deduct the overall travel to and from Vegas. You cannot, however, deduct the local travel and lodging expenses for those extra 3 days. Now, when it comes to international travel, the rules are a bit more specific. In order to be able to deduct the overall travel expenses to and from the Philippines, in my case, the IRS says that we have to spend at least 75% of our time on business-related activities. If we don't meet that 75%, then we can only deduct the expenses we incur on the business days. When calculating the 75%, weekends and travel days count as business days, so that helped in our case to meet the threshold. In other words, I was able to deduct the round-trip tickets for all 4 of us. So what does that mean? It means instead of just being out $5,000, I can also deduct it from my taxable income. That means that there's $5,000 I won't be taxed on. So if my average overall tax rate is 25%, that's about $1,250 in tax I don't have to pay. So the after-tax cost of the $5,000 in tickets is really more like $3,750. That's the benefit of finding a way to deduct my family. Not only do they get to come and have this experience, but we can also legitimately deduct those costs through the business. The same goes for the hotel stay, the meals, and the activities. We didn't rent a car, so we took lots of taxis and tricycles. That local travel on the business-related days was all deductible. Now, we did take a day and do some sightseeing just with the family, and those expenses were not deductible. We also had some team activities. Entertainment deductions were eliminated in 2018, so if you take clients or prospective clients to a baseball game or a show, that would likely not be a deductible expense. But if you take your employees or team to some sort of team building activity with a business purpose, that's still deductible. Activities that are educational or training focused may have a stronger case for deductibility, such as workshops or seminars that enhance skills or productivity. Recreational activities like outings or parties can be deductible if they are primarily for the benefit of employees and not considered entertainment. However, they must meet certain criteria, such as not being lavish or extravagant. Now, I took my team on an island hopping tour. It only cost us like $50 per person, so I don't think they could accuse us of being lavish or extravagant. And given it was the first time we'd all been together, I feel totally confident that it falls in the category of a team building activity rather than purely entertainment. And as far as the wages I pay to my team members on a regular basis, those are fully deductible as well. Overall, it was an amazing trip, and the fact that we could legitimately deduct most of the expenses was the icing on the cake. And we even got a super quick tour of South Korea on our layover on the way back home. By ensuring that most of what we did was tied to the business and well documented, we were able to make this trip both a personal and professional win. With tax time around the corner, make sure you have your ducks in the row. My link is down below to sign up for the waitlist for my Reseller Tax Academy, which opens up in January, and use the other links below for more resources to help you optimize your tax situation and overcome the anxiety so you can focus on building your business profitably.